Howdy, folks. This is Helcrex, and welcome to episode 19 of Thoughts from the Inner Sphere. And today we're going to take a quick break away from talking about mechs and talk about what kind of maps do you play on. Do you play on hex maps that are provided by the box, or you can go to the store and pick up the supplemental boxes that have the different kinds of hex maps on them? Or do you prefer nothing but open terrain, which means you build it yourself? You lay out a mat. Today they have the new, they're kind of like the mouse pad maps that you can just that you can lay out. They're usually 4x4, 4x6, 4x8 type sizes. And they then you just put your own terrain on top of them. Or you can see in the picture of, I have a piece of green felt that's a 4x8 piece of felt that I picked up for less than $10 at the local, I think it was Walmart at the time, and produce my own terrain. I could make my own woods, find buildings or make your own buildings, and just create your own terrain for the game. All right, there's pros and cons for both of them, and let's just look into some of these. Now, let's just say you're the first time you've ever played the game. You picked up the box set, and it comes with these two nice map sheets, map boards. There used to be sheets of paper that fold up, and now they got them nice and thick, which are kind of nice ones. But that's all you have. You just started the game out, and you're looking at it's like, okay, this is pretty simple. And this is the nice thing about hex maps, is that when you start off, if it says 20 hexes is your range, it means 20 hexes. You just count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And you draw a line. It's like, okay, this is the terrain it goes through. And it's pretty simple. All right. There is no ands, ifs, or buts, because the defender says, all right, the line of sight goes directly. All right. That's the closest line of sight. It goes to that wood hex, or it goes to this wood hex. Over top of that hill, but since we're using FOSSA physics, I'm tall enough I can see over the hill, etc., unless I'm one hex away, etc. And there's no ambiguity really per se of figuring out what is the best way of using those hexes. And there's no arguments involved. It's like, okay, I can see that. All right, there's two wood hexes here. You're in the third wood hex, standing in it. Gives you a 3 modifier. All right, so they're all light wood. So there's a 3 modifier to me hitting you because of all the terrain involved. All right, or it's like, oh, there's a heavy wood and a light wood in between us. Sorry, neither one of us can see each other. All right, no problem. Find a new target. I'm going to shoot over here. So that's the nice thing about hex maps. Individual can look at it and go, there's no question about it. But what is the cons of playing on hex maps? If you played as long as I have, and you see pretty much the same hex maps that started in the first box set, and years later they're still putting them out, and today they have the new hex maps, the thicker board type ones. But if you bought 1 or 2 boxes and you end up with 4 of the same thing, there's no variety. Right? You can only put these things together so many different ways to create so much different variety, and that is the problem with hex maps, is creating variety in what you have on the board. Now they do have, which they have looked into, is that you can buy the river hill supplement box, and you have these little hills, you got some rivers, lakes, and stuff that you can put on. Roads, you name it. They have several different kinds of them that you can use and put into the game, and change your maps in a way that kind of gets rid of that same thing that you're always playing on. But eventually you're going to be saying, well, there's only so many different ways I can reskin this, and it's still kind of the same. So you start losing some of the flavor. So what can you do? Now, individuals that, like me, I started playing Napoleonics years ago before I started playing Battletech. And I looked at it, and then I started getting into more Battletech, and I was playing Napoleonics. Napoleonics didn't have any boards. You made your own terrain, or you created the battle that you were playing on. In the same way, when I started playing the Civil War, American Civil War, you had to create your own terrain, you create your own battles, so you had to build your own terrain, you had to create your own hills, etc. And suddenly you're like, maybe we can do this. So we started playing on open terrain. Now, not everybody liked the idea of playing on open terrain. There's to this day, I have individuals I play with. It's like, nope, it's got to be Hex Map. That's the only way you play Battletech. Okay. Which we're going to get into. I'll tell you something else that's kind of cool, which kind of helps a little bit. But you know, you create your terrain. It's like suddenly every game can be different because the hills are different. You can set the hills over here. You can put the woods over there. You can put a river through. You can put a road in. You name it. If you have the terrain and you build it, you can create however you want to on the table. There's just so many ways of doing it. There's variety in every game. And if you get a little tired of what you have, it's like, okay, let's go grab a coffee can. I got some pop cans over here, and I can make a refinery complex out of Pringle cans, or you name it. You just grab stuff and you create terrain. And then you just keep doing that. And if you get into the habit of doing it, you're going to constantly create new things. And you're going to have many different ways of playing the game. But what is the cons with this? The biggest problem I found when we're ever playing with individuals that were playing with Hex Maps, and they go the first time, is like they have a hard time trying to figure out, it's like, well, how far is this? And they're using a tape measure, and it's like, well, what does that mean in hexes? 1 inch equals 1 hex. Okay. And then they have a harder time. It's like, well, how far did I move? I don't remember how far I moved. So there's a disconnect between, and then you have to teach them. It's like, all right, put a die here behind where your mech was, and then you went over here. All right, you made a turn, put a die here, and then you went over here. So you measure the physical distance that you went, and then round down or round up. That's another thing. Is rounding is like, if I'm at 7.25 inches, is that 7 hexes or is that 8? That's 8. Round up. So, you got to teach them. And then they're using the tape measure, and you're sitting there looking, like, all right, hold it down to where you're at the edge of your hex, and then it's like, how far is that? And it's like, I can't tell. Is that a 1/4 inch? Are you over top? And then not everybody seems to want to measure with your tape measure the same way. So you're going to have a little bit of problems with that way. And that's where it comes in. So like, if it's a 1/4, just round up. Everybody's going to round up. So that is some of the problems you're going to have. So that's kind of a con. Now, some interesting things we've done with open terrain is that we're able to 1-for-1 movement. So if you're a 4/6 mover, if you want to walk 4 inches or 4 hexes, and if you're using Hex Maps, go 1, 2, put your tape measure, like using rulers, lay it down and go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, stop. Plus, put the +1 die showing that you walked and you got a +1 modifier. Put that next to your mech. And that's another thing we always like to do. If you ever looked in some of the last video I did, and you see the little dies on next to the mechs, that's showing what the modifiers are that you have, and what you have one die showing I walked and this is my modifier, or I ran, different color die showing that's my modifier. So when you're shooting, you know that, okay, I walked, and it tells them that you walked, so they know what the modifiers are. That's another thing that we added into our games over the years. So you have to, so individuals have a problem with figuring out the movement distances. But what we ended up doing is we went for a 1-to-1 movement, but a 2-to-1, since we're playing on these big 4x8 tables, we have a 2-to-1 range. So if a PPC shot 18, it shoots 36. But your movement is only 1-to-1, range is 2-to-1. So we were able to shoot and have big games, but you're extending the range, and it makes the game go a little faster, because now you can shoot clear across the board. Let's say with an LRM, which has a range of 21, now you can shoot 42. So you just double whatever the modifiers are. All right. So if you're within 7 hexes, double that's 14. So if you're within 14 or less, that's short range. All right. It's just real simple. That's something that you might want to think about going into eventually in the game too. Now, if you are a big stickler for wanting to play hex maps, there's something called Heroscape. It's a game that came out years ago, and it's been discontinued, but Heroscape is a game that has hexes on it. And you take these pieces and you link them together, and you can create this big board of hexes of games that you play with this game system. And what you're doing is that when we're at Gen Con, we the first time we were talking about it, and one of the guys was like, yeah, it's like, I got this Heroscape stuff, and what do you think? I was like, that's a great idea. I think you gotta do it. So it's like, first year he brought it together, and it's like, all right, we played on it, and he went out and bought all the Heroscape stuff he could find, and he laid it down, and it's like, yeah, this is great, works good. There's no ambiguity, and he could set the game table up any way he wanted to. Worked out fine. And then I said, what if you put flock on the top of those? And he was like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. So what he did was he sanded it down, and he put a little flock on the little center parts of the squares to give it a look like it's whatever the terrain it is. Green for flat, kind of a grayish for the next for hills, etc. And it raised it up. And then we ended up with a 3D hex terrain system. What was it? Geoscape, I think it was. From way back they had it, but it was so expensive at the time, and it was made out of like styrofoam, the pink stuff. And not too many people had that stuff. But that is some of the things that you can do, is if you want to transition into open terrain, go for it. It's a great way of playing Battletech. And then also think about doubling your weapon ranges at the single movement modifier, so you don't have to worry about doing a lot more math. And if you're a big guy that wants nothing but hex games, look into Heroscape. And with Heroscape, you still play your hexes, but you can add stuff to the game and give yourself a little bit more variety that way. That's some thoughts. This is Helcrex, and you guys have a great day, and we'll see you in the next one. This is Helcrex out.